Hey guys, welcome to Boxing Squared for boxing news and views from around the internet. The WBA is up to its old tricks again, doctoring the most recent heavyweight rankings to include Robert Helenius at number 6. So out goes Christian Hammer, who himself had been parachuted into the rankings at 6 just a few days ago. So the rankings were up for the best part of 3 or 4 days before they've put Helenius in here at 6. Like Hammer, Robert Helenius had not been ranked in the top 15. So we have to ask the question, what is going on here? And the WBA unlikely to give us an answer because zero transparency as usual. They just amend the rankings, Hammer gone, Helenius in. So all we can really do is speculate, and I will do a bit of that because it suggests to me that Robert Helenius is likely to fight someone in the WBA that's ranked above where he currently is at number 6. So we'll talk about that, and then I want to get onto the WBA in general because obviously this is a pretty dodgy sort of looking move here. And this whole thing with 4 heavyweight champions, the Fresakendo situation, they've got to tidy it up in 2020, or they should at least try to make some steps to ensure that, you know, they don't have 4 heavyweight champions, that they don't have a guy in the rankings for the past 5 years who hasn't fought. But this Robert Helenius situation, so to me, as I sort of alluded to, I think this suggests he's going to face someone above him. And there is 5 names above him, but one of them is probably a no-go. That's Alexander Usyk, who's the WBO mandatory. But of the other guys, you have Andy Ruiz Jr. Maybe that's unlikely. It's sort of hard to see Andy Ruiz Jr. coming straight back, but not impossible. There's also Luis Ortiz. That's possible too, I guess. I mean, Ortiz himself, just a month or so ago, came in at number 5 in the rankings, and now he's up to number 4. He hadn't been ranked at all. So the WBA is putting all these guys into its rankings out of nowhere, seemingly, though, for what purpose? So maybe a Luis Ortiz and Robert Helenius fight? It's possible. Maybe that's something that's been lined up for the Deontay Wilder and Tyson Fury rematch. Another guy here, Adam Kovnatski, who's at 3. I speculated when Hammer came into the rankings, maybe Kovnatski and Hammer, maybe that was going to be the headline event for March 7th in New York. That has been announced as Kovnatski's next fight date. But obviously Hammer gone now. Perhaps it's a case of there were negotiations, they didn't come to anything, and maybe Helenius is in the frame now. It's hard to say, but obviously another name that's been mentioned for Kovnatski is Dominic Breazeale, and that makes logical sense too. I mean, he's not on these rankings, but Breazeale is pretty much the only heavyweight within the PBC stable of any note that Kovnatski has not fought already. He's beaten Charles Martin, he's beaten Gerald Washington, Chris Arreola, and also Artis Pilka when he was with PBC. So he's gone through a whole bunch of PBC's stable, so Breazeale does make some sense, but I could see a Robert Helenius fight making sense as well. Helenius was in a very good fight with Gerald Washington in 2018, a very fun fight. Ultimately, he was stopped in that one where he actually probably was winning the fight at the time of the stoppage. So Kovnatski and Helenius, I guess it's a possibility, but maybe it's going to be Kovnatski and Breazeale. There's no definitive word on who the opponent is going to be. But if it's not Kovnatski and it's not Ortiz and it's not Ruiz, who are all PBC fighters, maybe it could be Trevor Bryan. Maybe the WBA is going to order Trevor Bryan to face Robert Helenius. Perhaps Don King, who promotes Trevor Bryan, has been lobbying behind the scenes, getting Helenius into the rankings here, or Hammer, or before him, or whatever, trying to get Trevor Bryan into a sort of contender level type fight. You know, he is the interim champ, hasn't fought for 18 months. He really needs a fight. I mean, the whole thing, it's very murky. I mean, who knows what's really going on, but it is a fact that Robert Helenius has been parachuted in here in these amended rankings to a very high ranking of 6. It's not like he was put in at number 14 where you could go, yeah, okay. But number 6, that suggests that he's been lined up for a fight against someone of note above him in those rankings. But on to the other sort of piece, I mean, the WBA, I mean, this sort of move, I mean, it's not the first time that it's done it. When Anthony Joshua was trying to line up a fight for Luis Ortiz, that was after Jarrell Miller, you know, obviously through the PED stuff, that fight fell through. The WBA inserted Ortiz into its rankings and then dumped him unceremoniously when it ended up being Andy Ruiz Jr. as the June 1st opponent. So it does chop and change and do this sort of stuff, and it doesn't really sort of answer to anyone or give us any clarity on what it's done or why. But the other stuff, you have 4 heavyweight champions. You have the super champion, Anthony Joshua, the regular champion, Manuel Cha, who hasn't fought in a couple of years. You have the interim champion, which is Trevor Bryan, hasn't fought in about 18 months now. And also you have the gold champion, which is Joe Joyce. I mean, that's a farce in itself. I mean, back in 2016, the WBA was actively trying to get down and reduce its numbers of heavyweight champions. It completely failed and flopped. They need to get back to trying to do something like that because their credibility is being eroded by the day. It's an absolute joke sort of situation. As is them not having resolved this whole situation with Fraser Kendo. He's number 15 in the rankings, hasn't fought since 2014. He's owed a title shot. He took court action a number of years ago and it still hasn't materialized. They've got to sort of tidy up their house at heavyweight because it is not in order. It's a complete farce at this point. They really need to do something and sharpish about all these different sort of moving parts which are very untidy because it makes them look like an absolute joke. What do you make of it all? Drop a comment, loud and often. Hit like, hit subscribe, follow me on Twitter, boxing_squared. I'm out.